Mighty beautiful flower arrangement, and we thank the good people that make this possible. Not long ago, someone described conscience as a small, weak voice that is getting smaller and weaker every day. And while this probably isn't exactly true, there are symptoms in society that would indicate that the internal values of the individual are not available to him as often as we would wish. What is conscience? There have been many, many different definitions. One definition that perhaps has some validity is that conscience is the voice of the folk. That is, it is a kind of whisper that descends to us through generation after generation of human experience. It is based upon the evidence of the past. It is based upon a careful consideration of the Ten Commandments and the Golden Rule. It is involved in man's total experience of existence. We see around us every day the consequences of wrong action. We observe how our neighbors suffer, how our nations are disturbed, and how our world is troubled. And we begin to put together patterns. We see the causes behind the difficulties that arise. We observe the temperament of our neighbor and decide that to some degree at least, this neighbor has been responsible for the sorrows that have come to him. We find the collective tragedy of disobedience to the common laws of our kind. We recognize the dangers of crime and of violence. We begin to appreciate the increasing problem of alcoholism and narcotics addiction. And we are able to see enough of the consequences of mistakes to create within ourselves a certain subconscious desire to correct these conditions so far as they apply to ourselves. And we are very apt to legislate in the direction of the correction of the common mistakes of living. Conscience, therefore, can be the voice of the old and the voice of the true, and to a sense at least the voice of the new. It is this continual nagging within ourselves against the intemperances which we realize to be dangerous. This type of folk experience comes down to us through history, through biography, through the testimonies of contemporary people, and through the personal experiences that come to ourselves every day. We know that if we do not discipline ourselves, we will fall into bad habits. We know that if we allow our appetites and our emotions to dominate our conduct, we will likely get into difficulties. So this has become a kind of internal defense mechanism. It is something that has come to us through the 5 sensory perceptions, has been reorganized and reintegrated in the brain, and has gradually been transferred to the heart as the basis of good living. This perhaps is an oversimplification of this problem, but it certainly does play a part. Conscience is just a series of warnings not to do what others have done and suffered as a consequence. Another definition of conscience, as we get a little more theological, is that in a sense it is the voice of the divine part of ourselves. Somewhere in the root of each living thing will be found the seal of the laws governing life. Every living thing, whether it be animate or inanimate, wishes to survive. And the seed of survival and the concepts necessary to survival seem to have descended to us with the very bodies and minds that we have inherited. Conscience is therefore that power within man which controls his moral growth, very much as that power in nature which controls the conduct of all other creatures. Just as the plant seeks the light, just as the earth is fruitful, so there are instincts to survive, to grow, to unfold and fulfill. And these instincts are born in us. They are part of our heritage. They are part of the life force which animates us. For with this force comes also certain impulses as to how this force is to be used. The proper use of all energy is survival. The lack of this proper use is self-destructive. So if we wish to assume that every ray of light brings life and hope to living things, so this same ray of life may have within itself the laws guiding its own use and aiming at survival by the correction of all abuse that may arise anywhere in the individual or collective destiny. If in truth this principle of survival is in us, it has laws, it has rules, it has systems of its own. Survival is not an accident. It is not some manifestation of a capricious providence. Survival is the result of the obedience of the principles to which survival is associated. Therefore, the will to be happy, the desire to be healthy, the hope for peace and harmony, the intention to do those things which will secure the maximum benefits, these impulses seem to be innate. They are probably in every cell and every blood drop that makes up the human corporeal constitution. They are in everything that exists, because existence continues, unfolds, and survives according to rules. It is not a series of accidents. In an effort to cooperate with the laws of existence, men attained or sought to attain some knowledge of these laws, and all the history of the search for realities has been impelled by this belief that the search will end in security, that the various factors and forces that make up destiny can be and are influenced by conduct, and that conduct itself is the secret of man's securities and happiness. This would carry the idea that there is a certain conscience in nature, that every natural law and natural force has something to do with the principle of cause and effect. And the principle of cause and effect tells us and reveals to us that unless we set up the proper causations, we cannot expect the securities we hope. Now, the search for the rules has dominated us for thousands of years, and the wisest and noblest of human beings have been dedicated to an effort to discover the rules governing life and the development of a character within living things by which these rules will be obeyed. That obedience to rules becomes the most important law for man. This, of course, naturally leads us to another problem. If there be rules, who made them? What is the source of these laws? Are they something that is innate in matter? Are they something that in themselves are eternal? Had they no beginning? Is there no intelligent principle behind them? Is it simply a series of accommodations to the unknown? Many thoughtful persons will not accept this. They do not believe that there can be laws without a lawmaker. They do not believe there can be an orderly existence unless the source of that existence is also orderly. And it has occurred to a great many who have studied human behavior that unless there are rules, there will be chaos. The individual without some pattern to live by seldom lives well. In the same way, a universe that has no pattern for its own existence can become involved in innumerable catastrophes. And it is the opinion of many learned persons who have studied the universe in some detail that without a presiding genius, without a sovereign principle or law, we would not even be problem today, because we would no longer exist. We would have perished long ago in the combustion of stars and the collisions of planets. We would have had no orderly defense for our needs or for our joys and sorrows. We realize that there is a strange interlocking of principles and processes all through the universe, and that these in turn are all aimed at providing a reasonable pattern for the existence of existing things. Buddha declared the universe to be a vast commonwealth. It was a vast integration, a kind of strange socialized cosmos, in which all of the principles work together for the common good, and all of these principles are subjectively aware of what constitutes the common good. Thus it would follow that, as Lord Bacon pointed out, that we cannot hope to have a mentally integrated universe without a mind. We cannot have life without universal life. We cannot have thought without universal thought behind it. We cannot have actions unless these are made possible through the dynamics in the universal pattern itself. So this brings with it the concept that conscience is something bestowed with natural law, that it is the true explanation of order, that it is the principle by which we exist as long as we obey, and obedience in this case is conformity to a universal purpose. At the seat of this universal purpose is therefore the universal purpose maker. The universe is either purposed or it is not purposed. If it is not purposed, nothing is important. If it is purposed, everything is important. As we obviously note every day, things are important. Therefore, the power that creates them must have importance, must have significance, must have the power and the authority to enforce the patterns by which the universe exists. We also come to know gradually that this universe is much more complicated and far vaster than we have ever imagined. It goes out into infinitudes of light years. It is inhabited by worlds, races, and nations of stars. It is constantly in motion. It is constantly evolving or manifesting. Every motion and manifestation is orderly, and every process is so exact that man has been unable to discover actually any conflict in this great pattern of things. What we call conflict, we are beginning to realize, is simply form of order and law which we do not comprehend, that is beyond our immediate or proximate knowledge. So the second theory of conscience is based upon the fact that it is based upon an allegiance of the individual form of life to the parent form, to the causal form, to the laws and rules governing the entire, and that the individual, as part of an entirety far vaster than himself, cannot set up an independent pattern of life in a world that is controlled by an absolute law. Conscience, then, can be said to be constantly counseling us to obey the principles upon which survival depends. Conscience is the internal recognition of a universal plan, of a divine power at the source of that life, and a divine edict to which we must give allegiance whether we wish to or not. This brings into the pattern the problem of deity. Today there are many atheistic states and nations.